Human treated an alien girl without rank, and she realized it was the freedom she'd hoped for. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's return to our main character. The storm rolled over Station K-49 like a living thing, throwing sheets of static across the metal walkways and making every panel hum with a low electric tremor. Evan Carter felt the vibration through his boots as he jogged along the narrow maintenance bridge, the cold air biting his cheeks and carrying the sharp tang of overheated circuits. The sky above the dome flickered with blue fire as the ion winds pushed against the shields, turning the station's outline into a ghostly silhouette. He clutched his toolbox tighter, breath fogging in the thin air, trying to ignore how the lights kept dimming as if the whole place was holding its breath. He hadn't even been on shift, but when the alert pinged his wristband, he'd come running like always. That was the thing about Evan. He didn't wait for permission to help. Somewhere deep in the structure, a loose panel clanged in the wind, and he followed the sound down into a service hatch lit only by a single flickering strip. The metal was cool under his gloves, and the hum of the generators vibrated through the walls like a distant heartbeat. As he stepped inside, a soft, startled inhale froze him in place. The beam of his handheld light landed on her. An alien girl, sitting alone on the floor near a row of sealed crates, wrapped in a thin gray shift that wasn't meant for cold weather. Her skin shimmered faintly in the dim light, a pale blue with a silver sheen that caught every pulse of electricity, and her eyes, wide, reflective, almost luminous, jumped toward him with a mixture of fear and confusion. A small metal collar circled her neck, glowing with a faint orange mark that spelled one thing in her culture: no rank. Evan's light shook slightly in his hand, but he lowered it, softening his voice. "Hey, sorry. Didn't mean to scare you." She didn't answer. Her shoulders tightened. The collar blinked once, as if warning her to stay silent. Evan glanced at it, but didn't comment. Instead, he crouched slowly, keeping a respectful distance. "This section gets freezing when the storm hits. You shouldn't be here without a thermal coat." She stared at him like she was trying to understand a trick. Most workers avoided looking directly at rankless aliens. Evan didn't look away. A quiet moment stretched between them, filled only by the soft hum of the failing lights and the gentle rattle of the storm outside. Her voice, when it finally came, was barely above a whisper. "You speak to me as if I matter." Evan blinked, taken aback. "You do." The lights flickered again, brighter this time, reflecting in her silver blue eyes. For the first time, she didn't look afraid, only surprised, as if no one had ever said that to her before. The silence between them stretched as the storm outside softened into a distant rumble, like the station itself was exhaling after holding tension too long. Evan kept his hands visible, palms resting on his knees, letting the girl choose the distance. She watched him with careful uncertainty, her silver blue eyes reflecting the glow of his handheld light. The collar at her neck pulsed with a dim orange pattern, steady and quiet. It bothered him, but he pushed that thought aside. She seemed cold, her fingers curled close to her chest, as if tucking heat into her palms. "You are not following any protocol," she said softly, studying him as though she was searching for a hidden motive. "Most workers do not speak unless spoken to." Evan shrugged lightly, trying to keep his tone calm and simple. "I am not most workers." The faintest shift crossed her expression, something almost like surprise. Another tremor rolled through the station, a gentle shiver that made the floor vibrate under them. A vent overhead clicked, releasing a draft of chilled air. Evan set down his toolbox and unzipped the outer layer of his maintenance jacket. Without moving too quickly, he draped it near her knees, not touching her, letting her decide if she wanted it. She stared at the offered warmth, then at him, as if trying to understand what kind of rule he had just broken. When she finally pulled the jacket closer, her shoulders seemed to relax by a fraction. He noticed her teeth no longer chattered. "What is your name?" Evan asked, keeping his voice gentle so it would not echo in the metal room. She hesitated, her gaze lowering as if expecting correction for answering incorrectly. Selah, she breathed, almost whispering the word. Selah Varen. She said the name as though it no longer belonged to her. Evan gave her a small nod. Selah, I am Evan. She repeated it under her breath, shaping the syllables slowly, almost testing how it felt to say his name. Evan. There was a quiet steadiness in her tone when she said it the second time. A flicker of lights overhead made her flinch. Evan glanced up. Power is dipping again. I need to check the auxiliary line. He pointed toward the control panel a few feet away. You will be safe here. If it gets too cold, take the jacket fully. It is insulated. Selah's fingers tightened around the fabric. You assume I will stay. Evan paused, meeting her eyes. I assume you will do what you want. That seemed to stun her more than the storm had. He turned toward the panel, listening to the low hum behind the metal. As he opened the access plate, he felt a soft presence shift behind him. When he looked back, she had moved closer, not too close, but enough that the light from his handheld reached her more fully. Her voice was quiet and fragile, but she spoke clearly. No one has ever said that to me. Evan adjusted a loose connector, the small spark illuminating her face for a heartbeat. Said what? She held his jacket close, the silver in her skin catching the glow like moonlight. That what I want matters. The auxiliary system clicked back to life with a gentle whir, and a soft warmth rolled through the corridor. Evan let out a slow breath, relieved. When he looked at her again, Selah was watching him not with fear, but with something he could not name yet. Something new. Something awake. The warmth that drifted through the corridor settled like a soft blanket, easing the metallic chill that had made Selah fold into herself moments earlier. Evan watched the numbers on his handheld stabilize, but his attention kept slipping back toward her, drawn by the quiet steadiness in the way she stood. The faint hum of the restored system wrapped the room in a gentle vibration, a low rhythmic pulse that softened the tension in the air. Selah traced a fingertip along the inner seam of his jacket, almost as if she was memorizing the texture. Her voice floated up, barely above the hum. Will it hold? Evan nodded, closing the panel with a careful push. For now, storms like this usually back off after an hour. We will keep an eye on it just in case. Selah tilted her head, studying him with that same silent curiosity that felt more disarming than any question. You speak calmly when everything shakes, she murmured. How? Evan smiled faintly. If I panic, the equipment follows. This place listens to people more than anyone realizes. Her silver blue eyes flicked toward the walls, as if imagining the station breathing the way he described. Another quiet tremor rolled under their feet, softer this time, and Evan steadied a pipe overhead with his shoulder. See, he said gently. Nothing to worry about. She watched him for a long second before whispering, I would like to believe you. He sensed the weight behind her words, something deeper than a storm or a failing system. Before he could respond, a soft chime came from farther down the hallway, signaling the shield recalibration cycle. A pulse of pale blue light swept along the ceiling, washing over her face and making her skin glow like frost-catching sunrise. Evan lifted his flashlight toward the path. We should get you somewhere warmer. The generator room is closer than the main dorms and has heaters built into the walls. Selah took a step, then paused, gripping the fabric of his jacket a little tighter. If they see me there, they will ask why I left my assigned sector. You will be with me, Evan said simply. That will be enough. She stared at him, searching his expression as though trying to see whether he understood what that meant in her world. Her voice grew soft. Being with someone does not usually protect someone like me. Evan met her gaze, steady and sure. It will this time. Something in her posture eased, just slightly, like a tight string loosening. She walked beside him as they moved down the narrow service corridor, her steps quiet but no longer hesitant. The storm outside softened further, the flickering lights smoothing into a steadier glow. As they approached the generator room, a warm draft brushed their faces, carrying the faint scent of heated metal and recycled air. Selah drew a breath, the warmth settling into her voice. Evan, why do you speak to me without calculating my rank? He pushed open the door, letting the soft, even heat drift out. Because rank is not the same as worth. Selah stopped in the doorway, the gentle light reflecting in her eyes. For a moment, she stood completely still, as if hearing those words changed something she had not allowed herself to hope for. And when she stepped inside, she did not grip the jacket for warmth anymore. She held it the way someone holds proof that they are finally seen. The generator room wrapped them in a steady warmth, a soft hum drifting from the walls like a gentle reassurance. The lights here were calmer, casting a muted amber glow that softened every sharp edge of metal. Sayla stepped further inside, her shoulders relaxing for the first time since Evan had found her in the cold corridor. She lowered herself onto a storage bench near one of the heating vents, her fingers brushing over the fabric of his jacket, as if grounding herself in something she did not yet have words for. Evan moved across the room to check the status consoles. Rows of indicators blinked in smooth patterns, and the heat coils glowed a soft reddish gold. Everything was stable. He let out a slow breath. "This will stay warm long after the storm passes," he said, turning toward her. Sayla watched him, her expression open in a way he had not seen before. "You take responsibility for the comfort of a place that does not require you to." Her tone carried no judgment, just quiet observation. Evan leaned against the panel, crossing his arms loosely. "Someone has to. If people feel safe, they work better. They sleep better. They breathe easier." Sayla's gaze followed a drifting wisp of warm air rising toward the ceiling. "On my world, comfort is a privilege assigned by rank. Those without rank do not deserve it." Evan shook his head gently. "Everyone deserves it." The room held the silence that followed, softer than before, like the station itself was listening. Sayla lifted her hand to her collar, her thumb brushing the small, orange light. "This identifies me as one who failed expectations," she said quietly. "It tells others I am not to be spoken to unless necessary. I am not to be touched. I am not to be considered." Evan stepped closer, stopping a respectful distance away. "I do not see failure." Her breath caught, just slightly. The glow from the heater reflected off her skin, giving her a faint shimmering outline. "Why?" she asked. It was not defensive. It was not wounded. It was almost hopeful. Evan answered simply, "Because anything else would feel wrong. You are a person. That is enough." Sayla looked down at her hands, and he noticed how she held them close, not in fear, but in something like uncertainty. A soft tone from the console announced the storm's decreasing pressure. The air felt lighter. Sayla's voice floated up again. "You speak as if worth is not something granted." "It is not," Evan said. "It is something you have just by existing." She seemed to absorb that slowly, like warmth spreading through cold. Her eyes lifted toward him, soft and reflective. "If that is true," she whispered, "then this is the first time I have been treated as worthy." Evan held her gaze, steady and gentle. "Then I am glad I was here tonight." Sayla's expression shifted with something delicate, something dawning. She touched the heating vent lightly, letting the warmth settle into her palms. "Evan," she said, her voice steadying, "may I stay here until the storm ends?" "You can stay as long as you need," he replied. Her breath released in a quiet, almost relieved sigh. In the soft glow of the generator room, Sayla no longer looked like someone hiding from the cold. She looked like someone slowly discovering she was allowed to belong. The storm outside faded to a muted whisper, leaving the generator room wrapped in a calm that felt almost unreal after the trembling corridors they had crossed earlier. The warmth radiating from the vents had settled into a gentle, steady flow, soft enough that Sayla's shoulders no longer held the rigid tension that had shadowed her every movement. Evan adjusted a dial on the wall, watching the gauges rise into a comfortable range. When he turned back, Sayla was studying the room with a quiet wonder, her silver blue eyes following the subtle shift of amber light across the metal surfaces. She rested her hands on her knees, fingertips grazing the edge of his jacket where it lay across her lap. "It is strange," she said softly, "how warmth can change the way a place feels." Evan walked over and leaned lightly against a work table, giving her space while staying close enough for her to feel his presence. "Cold makes everything harder," he said. "Warmth makes it easier to think, easier to breathe." She nodded slowly, as if trying the idea on for the first time. "On my world, warmth is controlled. Some are allowed it, some are not." Evan met her gaze with a steady calm. "Here, warmth is for everyone." Her eyes lowered for a moment, the soft glow from the heaters brushing against the silver in her skin. "I did not know places like that existed." A gentle silence settled between them, filled only by the soft hum of the generators. Evan noticed her tracing the small orange light on her collar, her fingers moving with a kind of absent unease. He stepped closer, speaking gently. "Does it hurt?" She shook her head. "Not physically. It restricts where I can go. It restricts who can speak to me. It restricts who I am allowed to be." Evan crouched slightly, staying at eye level. "It does not restrict you from being a person." Her breath caught at that, her hands pausing over the collar. "You say that as if it is simple." "Maybe it should be," he replied. She studied him, her expression shifting with something soft and searching. "When you found me," she said, "I expected to be escorted back to my assigned station. I expected to be reminded of my limitations." Her voice lowered, becoming something almost fragile. "Why did you not do that?" Evan took a slow breath, letting the warmth of the room settle in his chest. "Because I saw someone who was cold, alone, and trying to endure something they did not deserve." Sayla's eyes lifted, and for a moment, the shimmer in them looked like the reflection of distant starlight. "You looked at me," she whispered, "not at the collar." "Yes," Evan said quietly. "I looked at you." The heater cycled again, sending a soft wave of warmth across the room. Sayla closed her eyes for a moment, breathing it in, as if letting it reach places inside. Her that had been cold far longer than the corridor outside. When she opened them again, her voice was steady. "Evan, may I ask something without overstepping?" "Of course," he said. She hesitated, fingers lightly curling into the fabric of his jacket. "If I had no collar, would you still have spoken to me the same way?" Evan held her gaze, letting the truth rest quietly in his voice. "I would have spoken to you because you are you. Collar or no collar does not change that." Her breath released, slow and trembling, not from fear, but from something like relief. And for the first time since he had met her, Sayla's expression warmed, gently, like dawn finding a place it had been searching for. The warmth in the generator room held steady, wrapping the space in a calm that made every sound feel softer, as if the metal walls had settled into listening rather than vibrating with the storm. Sayla sat a little straighter now, no longer folded into herself, the faint silver shimmer of her skin catching the amber glow from the heating vents. Evan adjusted a gauge on the panel, watching the numbers settle into their optimal range, then turned toward her with the same quiet steadiness he had held since they first crossed paths. Sayla traced the fabric of his jacket again, though this time her touch was thoughtful rather than uncertain. "Evan," she said softly, testing the name as if still growing used to how it felt in her mouth. "May I ask something that might sound foolish?" He gave a small nod, leaning one shoulder against the wall. "There are no foolish questions here." She seemed to take strength from that, drawing a slow breath before speaking. "On my world, worth is determined by how much you contribute to the hierarchy. If you fail, even once, you are reassigned to a rankless status. That status follows you everywhere. It defines how others behave toward you." Evan listened without interrupting, his expression gentle. Sayla continued, her voice steady but quiet. "When you first looked at me, I wondered if you saw the failure first or the person trapped inside it. But you looked at me as if there was no difference." Evan let the silence linger long enough to give her words space. "I saw someone who was cold, alone, and trying to be strong," he said. "Not a failure." Sayla's gaze softened, something warm flickering behind her eyes. "You speak as though strength is not measured by achievement." "Strength," Evan said, "is getting through the moments that try to break you." She looked down at her hands, turning them slightly in the warm air. "Then I have been strong for a very long time." Evan felt a quiet pull in his chest at the honesty in her voice. He stepped closer, careful not to startle her, and took a seat on the floor a short distance away, resting his back against the metal wall. The warmth diffused between them. "You do not have to be strong alone," he said softly. Sayla looked at him with something like disbelief, as if no one had ever offered such a thing. "Humans are strange," she murmured. "You offer comfort even when nothing requires you to." Evan gave a small smile. "Maybe that is just kindness." She considered that, her gaze drifting to the soft glow of the vents. "Kindness," she repeated, as though trying the shape of the concept. "Does it not cost you something?" "Sometimes," Evan admitted. "But it gives something back too." She tilted her head. "What does it give?" Evan paused, searching for the right words. "Connection," he said. "A moment where two people see each other without all the noise around them." Sayla blinked slowly, letting that idea settle. In my culture, connections are assigned. They are not chosen. Then maybe this is new for both of us, Evan said gently. She looked at him again, and this time there was no uncertainty in her gaze, only a quiet clarity. This moment feels strange, she said. Strange in a way that makes me feel lighter. That sounds like a good kind of strange, Evan replied. Sayla's voice fell to a whisper. It feels like the beginning of something I do not have a word for. And in the warmth of the generator room, with the storm fading into nothing but memory, neither of them rushed to name it. The generator room had grown so calm that the soft hum of the vents felt almost like a steady heartbeat, a quiet rhythm holding the space together. Sayla sat closer to the warmth now, her posture no longer guarded, her expression open in a way that revealed more than any words could have. Evan remained, seated against the metal wall, legs stretched out, his eyes steady on the readouts, but his attention anchored to her. It was the kind of silence that did not ask for anything. It simply existed, gentle and shared. Then a faint chime broke through the calm, a soft alert from Evan's wristband. He lifted it, frowning slightly at the display. Shield integrity on the west section is fluctuating again, he said quietly. It is not dangerous yet, but I should check it soon. Sayla's gaze shifted toward the door, then back to him. Will you have to leave now? Her voice held no panic, only a quiet concern, as if the storm outside had woven them into a fragile thread she did not want to see pulled apart. Evan hesitated. I can give it a few more minutes. She nodded, her fingers resting lightly against the heating vent as if absorbing its comfort. Evan, she began softly, before you found me, I believed the storm would pass whether or not I endured it. I believed no one would notice. Her eyes lifted to meet his. But you noticed. He shifted slightly, not closer, but with a softening in his posture. Anyone would have. Sayla tilted her head, studying him with quiet honesty. No, not anyone. She looked down at her hands again. Some would have walked past. Some would have followed protocol. Some would have seen only the collar. Her voice lowered to a whisper. You saw me. The heater cycled again, sending a warm pulse through the room. Evan felt the weight of her words settle over him. Not heavy, but real. I am glad I did, he said, his voice steady and sincere. Sayla drew a slow breath, letting the warmth brush her face. Evan, if something ever threatened this station, what would you do? He thought for a moment. I would protect the people here. All of them. She absorbed that, her gaze shifting to the faint orange light on her collar. Even someone like me? Especially someone like you, he replied quietly. The words lingered in the air like a soft glow. But then a deeper chime echoed from the corridor outside, one that vibrated through the walls in a slow, warning pulse. Evan stood immediately, checking his wristband again. The fluctuation is spreading faster than expected. It might trigger a pressure imbalance. Sayla rose as well, steady, but clearly uncertain. Is it dangerous? Not yet, Evan said. But I need to check it now. She looked toward the door, her silver blue eyes reflecting a quiet conflict. Then she stepped closer, not touching him, but close enough that he could feel the warmth she carried. Evan, she said softly, if you go, may I go with you? He blinked, surprised. Sayla, you do not have to. Her voice steadied. I know, but I want to. The heater hummed behind them, casting a soft amber glow around her figure. For a moment, she looked more certain than he had ever seen her. Evan held her gaze. Then stay close, he said gently. Sayla nodded once, a quiet determination settling into her posture. And as they stepped out of the warm generator room and into the dim corridor, the air felt different, not because the storm had changed, but because she had chosen not to face the next moment alone. The corridor outside the generator room greeted them with a cooler breath of recycled air, the lights along the ceiling flickering in slow, uneven pulses that mirrored the warning tone from Evan's wristband. Sayla fell into step beside him, her movements careful but no longer hesitant, the gentle shimmer of her silver blue skin catching each passing glow. The distant tremble of the station's structure was not violent, only a soft vibration, like a reminder that the storm had left things unsettled beneath the surface. Evan checked another display panel as they passed, his brow tightening. The pressure readings are climbing too quickly, he murmured. The west section might be trying to compensate for a misaligned conduit. Sayla watched his hands move across the controls, her expression focused. Is that something you can fix? Yes, Evan said. But I need to get to the manual override. He hesitated, glancing toward her. It might be colder there. Sayla straightened, her voice steady. I will manage. They continued down the narrow walkway until they reached a small observation window looking into the west section. A faint mist clung to the air inside, the kind that formed when temperature controls struggled to keep balance. Sayla exhaled softly. It looks unstable, Evan finished. He keyed the access panel, the door sliding open with a soft hiss. A deeper chill rolled out, brushing past their legs like a quiet warning. They stepped inside together. The lights here were dimmer, a pale blue tint reflecting off the metallic walls. The air felt thinner, touched with the scent of cold circuits and static. Evan moved quickly to the main control hub, but Sayla lingered near the doorway, her eyes following every shift of the shadows. This place feels different, she said quietly. Not dangerous, just tense. Evan nodded without looking back. The systems are trying to communicate. When one part struggles, the others react. Like people, she murmured. He looked over his shoulder, offering a quiet smile. Exactly. A soft orange glow from her collar reflected faintly in the chilled air. She kept a careful distance from the exposed conduit on the wall, watching as Evan knelt to inspect it. The alignment slipped, he said. If I recalibrate it, the pressure should level out. Sayla stepped closer, her voice gentle. Will it take long? Only a few minutes. She folded her hands in front of her, as if collecting her thoughts before speaking again. Evan, earlier, you said you would protect everyone on this station. I meant it, he said, tightening a coupling. Including you. She hesitated, then lowered her voice. There is something I have not told you. Evan paused, turning to face her fully. Her eyes held something deep, something she had carried alone for too long. I am not rankless because I failed, she said softly. I am rankless because I chose to walk away from the position they wanted me to hold. Evan's breath stilled. You chose it. Sayla nodded slowly. My lineage, it carries a title, a burden. I refuse to accept it. Refusal is forbidden. Her hand brushed the collar lightly. This is the consequence. Evan stood, the cold air lifting a faint mist from his breath. Sayla, he said gently, that does not make you less. A tremor ran through the floor, a soft one, but enough to break the stillness. Evan steadied the conduit and kept his voice calm. Thank you for telling me. Sayla looked at him, her expression open, vulnerable, but no longer afraid of that vulnerability. I told you because you see a person where others see only status. I wanted you to know who I truly am. Evan held her gaze. I see you, Sayla. All of you. The mist thinned as the system began to stabilize, the lights lifting to a steadier glow. Sayla stepped closer, the quiet relief on her face mirroring the softening hum of the walls around them. And in that moment, surrounded by cold air and warming lights, her truth no longer felt like a burden. It felt like a beginning. The lights in the west section steadied into a calm, pale glow, the lingering mist thinning until the air felt clear again. Evan tightened the final fastener on the conduit, the soft click echoing faintly through the chamber. The station's hum settled into a smooth rhythm, no longer trembling beneath their feet. He exhaled, letting the quiet tell him everything was stable. When he turned, Sayla was watching him with a stillness that held more meaning than words could carry. The soft blue tint of the lights brushed across her silver-blue skin, making her look almost luminous in the chilled air. She stepped closer, her expression open, calm, and no longer hidden behind the guarded silence she had carried for so long. It is done? She asked softly. Evan nodded. It is done. The section is stable again. She let out a slow breath, something like relief threading through it. But she did not look at the conduit or the displays. She kept her eyes on him, as though he had become the anchor she trusted more than the walls around them. Evan, she said quietly, I told you the truth in the cold. But there is one more piece you should know. Her voice softened, almost fragile. My lineage, it is not only a title. It is a direct line to leadership. I was meant to inherit authority that controls entire sectors of my world. Evan blinked, the realization settling slowly. You were meant to lead them? She nodded once, the motion small but steady. Yes, but I did not want to lead through fear or hierarchy. I wanted to choose my own path, not one written before I was born. Her hand lifted slightly toward the collar. So I walked away, and they placed this on me. Evan stepped closer, not touching her, but letting the warmth of his presence reach her. You chose freedom, he said gently, and they punished you for it. Sayla's eyes glimmered, not with tears but with something deeper, recognition, perhaps, or the quiet ache of finally being understood. You asked earlier what I felt when you did not speak to me according to my rank, she said. Do you know the answer now? Evan shook his head softly. Tell me. She took one small step toward him. The lights caught in her eyes like distant stars. It felt like the freedom I hoped might exist somewhere, she whispered. And I found it in the way you saw me. Evan's breath caught, but he kept his voice steady. Sayla, I saw you because you let yourself be seen. She held his gaze, the moment stretching between them like a quiet thread woven from everything they had endured together. The storm, the cold corridors, the confessions born of warmth and silence. Then the station shifted, a gentle recalibration that hummed through the floor, signaling everything had returned to balance. Sayla looked around the room, then back at him, her voice barely above a whisper. Evan, when the storm hit, I thought I was trapped. Now I realize I was waiting. Waiting for what? He asked softly. Sayla stepped close enough that the faint warmth of her skin brushed the air between them. For someone who would look at me and see a person, not a position. Evan did not speak. He did not need to. The quiet between them carried more truth than any words could offer. Sayla's eyes reflected the steady glow of the restored lights, soft and full of meaning. And in that silent moment, standing in the gentle hum of a station finally at peace, her expression held a truth she no longer feared to show. She looked at him, not as a rankless girl, not as someone stripped of status, not as someone hiding from her past, but simply as herself. And for the first time, the freedom she had longed for felt real enough to touch.